I'm making a survival city builder in the desert with sandstorms, called Storm Settlers. A couple of months ago, I ran some playtests and received a truckload of feedback from players. They told me what was wrong with my game, so I had to fix it. After my last playtest, I felt it was time to start aiming for the finish line. So I put on my producer hat and planned everything that I would need for a final release. Looking at all this new content, it became obvious that those would need playtesting as well. But asking for some new playtesting while I was still sitting on the previous playtest feedback felt like wasting the playtesters' time. What's the point of getting feedback if I don't do anything about it? So I first gave myself a small milestone of tackling all this feedback, so that the content that already exists is in a good shape before I start adding more. My game has sandstorms happening periodically. They can come from any of the 4 directions and will make the sand spread on the neighbor tile. It's pretty much my main mechanic that is unique and different from other city builders, which makes it the most challenging thing to teach to players. Playtest.
Oh my god.
After playtest, I first added icons when placing walls. Players still didn't understand. Added an encyclopedia page with an animated gift. Still confused. Added different colors for bad walls to show that they won't block the sandstorm. Not enough. I coded one-dimension animated auto-tiling tile sets, which normally don't exist in Unreal. That changes depending if the storm is spreading sand or not. Nice try, better luck next time. I feel the real issue was that it was focusing too much on how the walls would block the storm and showing the consequences of the storm after it happened, instead of before. In the previous playtest, a lot of players said they'd like to know where the next storm is coming from. So I leaned on that idea instead. Once the direction of the next storm is known, I add a slow pulsating glow on the side of the screen, and created fake storms that are more like gusts of wind. They use the exact same algorithm as the storms themselves, allowing to have sand slowly dripping on the tiles that would be affected by the next storm, or have the sand pile up on the walls, showing that they'll block it successfully. It obviously makes the game easier, but it adds a strategic aspect to fighting the storm that makes it a lot more interesting than just walling all 4 directions and hoping for the best. I'll see in the next playtest if it finally addresses my forever problem. Before the playtest, I finally added roads to my game, allowing it to place them in L shapes, instead of one by one like buildings. New players were asked to first place roads before they had to place the older feature of walls. So now that hindsight is 2020, it's not surprising that one of the most requested features from the last playtest was to be able to place walls in L shapes as well. It's a great example of how new features can affect the player's perspective on older ones. While I was at it, I also allowed to place dig and grass requests in a rectangle shape as well, on top of adding turnover dirt for grass and a wet sand tile set, so it's clear that those tiles will be worked on. Plus, it makes more sense on why it costs water to dig away sand. In all of this, I was also distracted by releasing my Steam page. I had to put my marketer hat, remake my trailer, and try to sell that little creation of mine. So, of course, if you want to support me, a wishlist would be much appreciated. One recurring problem new players were having was struggling with food and building more and more very inefficient farms, to the point where half their population were farmers and it still wasn't enough. Before the last playtest, I made it so that, mathematically, having more than 4 buildings exploiting the same tile would not result in any increase of production. But since I was still allowing it, players would not understand that their farms were so bad that they wouldn't even produce enough food to feed the farmer working it. So I changed it to straight up block production of the 5th building trying to exploit the tile. Mathematically, it's exactly the same production as before, but it's a lot more obvious to the player than asking them to do all the maths every time they want to place a building. And to make it extra obvious, I added a very low production animated icon to show to the player that they are being very suboptimal. And to help finding the different power core boxes the player needs to build a drill and win the game, I added a UI that tracks the boxes that were found in each quadrant. and added a notification once one is found by an explorer. Looking at playtesters footage, I noticed that a lot of people would mash right-click and try to assign a settler to a building multiple times, cause there wasn't much feedback that something happened when you click. So I added some stretch and squash on buildings when hovering your mouse over them, and when assigning a settlers, so it's clear that it worked. I also took the opportunity to add some little high-pitched voices to the settlers.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess I'm also a voice actor now. Now gates, that used to be called wall doors because English is hard, were pretty hard to see, so I added arches. I nerf walls to have less HP with a tech to upgrade them. The first building players places is the town center that produce a base amount of resources. A while ago, once I added a fail condition, I made it so that the amount of resources the town center provides eventually runs out. And nobody understood that mechanic.
How are you running out of money?
People would not understand what the warnings were about,
Town center's running out of money?
and would be surprised to suddenly not have enough resources to feed their settlers. So to make it more apparent, I added 3 sub-buildings to the town center that represent 3 types of resource given. They slowly change sprites based on the amount left, and starts to flash when they're about to run out. Players were not sure if workers assigned to production building were actually doing anything. Numbers would go up, but it wasn't clear where those resources were coming from. I added small animations over the head of workers at the moment resources are ticking. So if you are looking at them, you notice it, but in a big late game crowd, it's not too distracting. Another of the recurring feedback that refuses to go away. Even if the player is warned that they have a bad production of food and water, they were still surprised when the settlers would suddenly die on them.
There they go.
Which made it more frustrating than fun. So I added a new warning that would happen when the player have only 1 day left of food before some settlers die. And while I was changing stuff in there, I added a more doomy notification with dramatic bells when the settlers would die. I took care of a lot of other small tasks that I won't bore you about in this video. I want to thank again everybody who's been part of the playtest and give me feedback. It's so valuable and helps me make a better game. Now that those are out of the way, I can tackle the new content and the bigger tasks related to the player feedback. A lot of people were frustrated with the exploration mechanic, so I'll put a lot of attention to it. I'll also add more advanced type of resources, more complex challenges for the late game, and a lot of new content that will lead to, you know it, another playtest! Which, based on my planning, should happen around March 2026. If you want to be part of it, come join my Discord server or just stick around here. Oh right, and wishlist the game. And added a notification once one